So the formula basically was that voters should be out on the streets to cast their votes. The intimidators should either be detained or in jail on the day of poll.
So how many such people were there totally?
I won't be able to give you figures, but as far as the arrests are concerned, which was against specific cases which were already there against them, this figure would have been around 2,500 in the last 60 hours prior to the start of the poll. Actually, yes, you are right. One can say that almost an industry had developed around this particular, denial of the voting right of the people. There were many methods which were used. Coming back to your question as to whether any face recognition was used, face recognition was not directly used, but what was used was an AI-based system for video analytics, where certain types of irregularities or certain types of situations inside the booth which ought not to be there, those cases were identified by the analytic engine, and it was highlighted. The situation in most other states is not like this. I have been an observer in several other states. I have had quite a few experiences, but I have never come across a state where this much of violence, this much of uh, you know uh, narrative building, this much of intimidation, this much of inducement in certain ways is employed during the elections.
Is West Bengal electoral autocracy? You may answer this, may not answer this. You have your constraints.
Either it is an autocracy or people believe in the Newton's first law for too long. In many of these cases, the police have given very stringent sections of law to ensure that they are behind bars for substantial periods of time. So if anyone is of the idea that they can just go ahead and do anything, they would be sadly mistaken. If my home is just 1 kilometer away from the polling station, and I am about to go to the polling station, and then I am prevented or I am threatened, in that case, if I complain and if the complaint is proved, even then that will be considered a booth capturing. So I am coming to that. Actually, what happened was this database was created. Once the database was created, it came to light that certain peculiar inconsistencies were there. The age difference between father and son was less than 15 years, between grandfather and grandson less than 40 years. Then there were these cases where a person had 20, 30 or 40 odd children, in one case more than 350 children. So these were cases which led the election commission to believe that the database has been corrupted by wrong data, and that is when the software was used. One software was used to identify those cases where there were inconsistencies in the data which had been entered, and that was how logical discrepancy was born. And then, of course, everyone had to be, everyone who featured in that list had to be issued notice. And really, I must also say that in this, many of the people who were genuine voters, unfortunately, they also had to, because they had received the notice, because of certain discrepancy, and many of these discrepancies were because of spelling errors in their names or in their parents' names, etc. They had to appear and produce the documents.
I remember. Hi, welcome to Podcast with Pratim. I have with me Dr. Subrata Gupta. In Bengali, we say Gupto. In English or Hindi, you will say, tell him as Gupta. So Dr. Gupta is an observer with State Observer for Election Commission of India in West Bengal. Unofficially, we all assume or consider him as the architect of a free and fair election in West Bengal in my memory, which is close to 6 decades. Dr. Gupta was former secretary to uh, food processing industry in Delhi, and he was former additional chief secretary in West Bengal. Sir, congratulations. A very unfortunate distinction of holding a rigging-free, violence-free election in West Bengal. And the
Thank you.
poll turnout, 92% turnout, clearly overrides the voter list deletion. So that effect is overridden by 4 to 6%, as per, I don't know, you can tell better. And so that vindicates your stand that a free and fair election can bring more people, though there is another narrative to that you are aware of. So, can we finally say that the Election Commission of India has discovered the formula to really hold a clean election in West Bengal?
Through the years, what we have seen is that people who are supposed to be, in jail or under detention, they have played a very major role in intimidating voters of all shades. And that has been there not only in the recent times, but it has been there for many, many years in the past. So this time the Election Commission felt that the main motto of this election would be, main target of this election would be that people should be able to vote fearlessly, and they should not be subjected to intimidation, they should not be subjected to inducement. There should be no chappa or rigging, there should be no booth capturing, and then one term which they used repeatedly was there should be no source jamming. I'll come to that later on. So these were the mantras which were told to us umpteen number of times by the Election Commission, led by the Chief Election Commissioner, Mr. Ganesh Kumar. And this is the mantra which we transmitted to every level of poll official at every stage. So whether it was at the time of the nomination, whether it was at the time of making preparations, whether it was at the time of training of both police officials, police staff, as well as the polling staff, whether it was while briefing the CAPF commanders, these 6 or 7 mantras were repeatedly drilled into them. So it became something like a habit. Everybody said that yes, this is what we have to do. This was very important. The second thing was that we also, through a very concerted and well-planned strategy, ensured that people were either sent to their homes or sent to preventive detention on the poll day. And these people were selected not on the basis of our whims or any particular person's whims or choice. It was based on record of these people in the past elections, also in the past few years. Who are the people who have cases against them? Who are the people who have indulged in the past in post-poll violence? Who are the people who are known in the locality to be intimidators, etc., etc. So the formula basically was that voters should be out on the streets to cast their votes. The intimidators should either be detained or in jail on the day of poll. Now, it will obviously raise a question as to they also have voting rights. What did we do about that? So our detention was a very humane detention. We requested people that you come and be there in the police station from the evening prior to the day of poll. On the day of poll, because of their past history, they were not allowed to go out till it was 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. So they were let off at around 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. to enable them to go and cast their vote. So everyone who was detained like this, they were given the offer of casting their own vote at the end of the day. So this way we ensured that they have their right to vote was not reduced in any way, while their right or what they considered their right to intimidate voters was curtailed.
So how many such people were there totally?
I won't be able to give you figures, but as far as the arrests are concerned, which was against specific cases which were already there against them, this figure would have been around 2,500 in the last 60 hours prior to the start of the poll.
Right. So when it comes to rigging, normally, for example, in South 24 Parganas, those of us who live in West Bengal should know, at least journalists should know, that in South Bengal, the rigging was a norm, not an exception. Like, people used to, people from all religion, it's not about any particular thing. So they used to, they wouldn't have to cast their votes. It was cast. That was kind of a situation until last year. So last election. So that said, in how many phases, how many ways polls are rigged in West Bengal? I believe we have discovered a factory or an industry to rig polls.
Actually, yes, you are right. One can say that almost an industry had developed around this uh, particular, uh, you know, mm, denial of the voting right of the people. There were many methods which were used, but in every case, one of the things which is obvious is that a person is impersonating somebody else. He has come in and he is voting in place of somebody else who is a genuine voter. Now, to discourage this behavior, we ensured two things. Number one was 100% webcasting in every polling station.
Right.
And this webcasting was there in the video feed was available through the telecom network at the control room of the returning officer, at the control room of the district election officer or the district magistrate, at the control room of the chief electoral officer, and it was also available at the headquarters of ECI in Delhi.
Right.
So continuously, the booths were being monitored through the day for the orderliness of the polling. Now, we also parallelly we ensured that this message goes out very loud and clear to anybody contemplating to cast false votes that if they are caught, and they would be caught because their picture video would be available on
Did
the
you use any
video
face
feed.
recognition software?
No, we didn't, but we did use some other things. Uh, we said that everyone who casts a vote in place of somebody else can be identified from the video, and an FIR would be lodged. And after an FIR is lodged, we will pursue it till he is jailed, and the penalty for that is up to 1 year of imprisonment.
Right.
So this is one. Coming back to your question as to whether any face recognition was used, face recognition was not directly used, but what was used was an AI based system for video analytics where certain types of irregularities or certain types of situations inside the booth which ought not to be there, those cases were identified by the analytic engine and it was highlighted. For example, if within the voting compartment where there is only supposed to be only one voter, if there is more than one voter
Right.
or more than one person, then it flagged those cases. It immediately highlighted those cases. Or if I see that a person is inside the voting compartment for more than a minute, then immediately it was flagged, because for casting vote you require between 8 to 12 seconds. You don't require more time. So somebody who is inside the booth for as long as 1 minute or more than that, it raises some suspicion. So there
Right.
were 5 or 6 such situations which were identified by the video analytics which was used. And on the basis of that, we could intervene and talk to the respective presiding officers or the sector officers and ask them to intervene and correct the situation.
Right. Uh, viewers should know that Dr. Gupta is an IIT Kharagpur alumni, and within the cadre, he is referred as an IT genius, and we see some of these things. Sir, 100% webcasting, I remember, was introduced in UP election in 2022. My question to you are two questions. One, why it was delayed in West Bengal, why it was not introduced in 2024, and second, the kind of technologies that you used this time in West Bengal, will it be replicated nationwide?
See, that is for the Election Commission to decide. But going by the performance, and the Election Commission has repeatedly lauded the performance of the systems that we put in place, I would presume that to ensure a free and fair poll, they are going to adopt these practices elsewhere too. However, having said that, I would also like to point out that the situation in most other states is not like this. I have been an observer in several other states. I have had quite a few experiences, but I have never come across a state where this much of violence, this much of uh, you know, uh, narrative building, this much of intimidation, this much of inducement in certain ways is employed during the elections.
I hope Dr. Gupta is constrained by his position. As a journalist, I have some freedom. So I believe we are the only state. Bihar was once lampooned as for rigging. But over the last 3 decades, my experience is West Bengal is the only state where the ruling party sponsored rigging takes place. It is not a regular chappa vote kind of, muscle power that, in Bihar used to be the muscle man controlled rigging. But over here, it's a different mechanism that works. Should you agree or disagree or remain indifferent to that?
See, the police, the administration, everything is essentially controlled by the ruling party everywhere, in every state. So if the ruling party decides to use them or misuse them for its own purposes, it can do so. In Bengal, there have been so many complaints of violence, post-poll violence, and rigging, both during the previous regime as well as in the present regime, that it will be
It is
difficult to
regime
say.
agnostic. It is regime agnostic.
Yeah, so it will be difficult to say that the ruling dispensation at least did not turn a blind eye to what was happening on the ground.
Right.
So what I mean to say is that even if they have not actively encouraged, the fact is that they have not actively discouraged either.
Right. That prompts me to ask you: Is West Bengal electoral autocracy? You may answer this, may not answer this. You have your constraints.
Either it is an autocracy or people believe in the Newton's first law for too long. We earlier had a situation where one type of dispensation was there in power for 34 years. Then we have, in fact, continuing to have another dispensation for 15 years. And this in certain states, in many states, in fact, every 5 years the government changes because the people feel that the team has become old and we need to have a fresh team. In Bengal, unfortunately, the people have been generally very, very permissive of the government in power.
Right. You spoke about violence. Now, pre-poll violence or up to election violence you have handled this year. And you may have data as which, but I don't think that people are really seriously, they have gone into. I'm talking about the journalists because I don't remember a single election where there was these bombs and etc. In my opinion, it has been the best, most peaceful election that I have ever known of. That is known to me. So that said, how can we control the post-poll violence that is right at this moment, that is not under EC's control?
No, it is. It will not be correct to say that it is not under EC's control. I think the entire Central Armed Police Force is still there on the ground. They are all deployed. And if there is any, in fact, we are still getting some complaints about intimidation, etc., and they are moving. You can say that maybe because of this very taxing period of holding the election, They're not as much visible now as they were visible just before the polls or during the polls.
No,
But
no, let me
they are
let me
still there
let
on
me
the ground.
make it precise. Once the government is formed, this post-poll violence takes place last time also from between the results and the formation of the government, and then after that. So it has been normalized over here. What can, maybe okay, this time your results will come out on 4th. Probably the list will be handed over to the governor on 6th, I anticipate. So between 4th and 7th, there is a period when things can happen. So maybe you will be in charge then. So you can handle it, but you have nothing
We,
to do after 7th. You cannot
we are,
control.
yeah, a couple of points. Our state police observer, Mr. N.K. Mishra, who has been handling the police deployment and the CAPF deployment very, very effectively over the last 1 month or so. He has been here with us. And he has been, and even before that, he had been studying the situation in Bengal. So he is completely hands on and he is completely aware of the history of post poll violence in Bengal. And I'm sure he is working overtime to ensure that all factors are taken into consideration before deployment. That is number one. Number two is that as far as the period till 7th is concerned, the election commission will still be in control over the law and order situation insofar as it relates to the poll. Number three is that the election commission has let us know that post poll violence, which originates from the polling itself, is very much their business, and they will ensure that the central armed police force are available on ground to the extent required for as long as it is required to ensure and instill confidence in the people. So you might have a situation where the CAPF will remain on the ground beyond the 7th of May till it is required.
No, that the Home Minister also said, but what is not clear to me, because we have seen it in the past, CAPF has been there pre-poll or post-poll, but the state apparatus is not letting them work. They were garage somewhere. So that doesn't solve the problem. So someone has to crack the whip that it is not done. This time
Yeah.
you crack the whip.
So the cracking of the whip by the cracking of the whip by the election commission prior to poll and during the poll has happened. Now what remains is cracking of the whip after the polls. The one of the things which I would like to say is that the free run which the history sheeters and the criminals etc. who could have had a free run, they did not have a free run till the polls, and I think their level of confidence and the extent to which they can go and that has been seriously eroded because of the actions which have been taken just in the recent past. So I do not think that there will be too many of these people who would like to again take the risk and venture out and do these things. But yes,
That's
if
one
they,
good thing. For the
yeah, so
first
if
time
they
in
want
many
to
years,
do,
they have experienced the stick.
first time they have experienced, and also in many of these cases the police have given very stringent sections of law to ensure that they are behind bars for substantial periods of time. So if anyone is of the idea that they can just go ahead and do anything, they would be sadly mistaken.
I mean, so far as I understood, you used only the existing set of laws which were there.
Yes, so what I as I said, that the existing set of laws were used. No new law was used, but yes, we use them rather than not use them. That was the change. Secondly, one of the messages which went out very, very strongly, and it was not only to the administration, not only to the police, not only to the CAPA, but also to the political parties and their candidates and their workers, was that this time booth capturing will not be tolerated at all. It will be a zero tolerance policy as far as booth capturing and rigging is concerned. Now, what is booth capturing? Under the Representation of the People Act 1951, if the control of the EVM or the ballot box, etc., inside the polling station is taken away by people who are not authorized to have that control, that is to say that the presiding officer and the polling officers they lose control over the EVM, etc., because of some people, some unauthorized people taking over the control, then it is called booth capturing. Then it is defined as booth capturing. But there is also another provision which says that if a voter is intimidated, if a voter is prevented physically or mentally from walking or going to the polling station from his place of residence, even that will be construed as booth capturing, which
Okay.
means
Okay.
that if my home is uh, just one kilometer away from the polling station,
Hmm.
and I am about to go to the polling station, and then I am prevented or I am threatened. In that case, if I complain and if the complaint is proved, even then that will be considered a booth capturing. And this idea was drilled into everyone repeatedly through this period.
That's unique. That's really unique. That is exactly what happened on
So
ground.
it is an old law, but we brought it up this time.
And what is source jamming? You did not explain.
Oh, yes. So this is the source jamming concept, that the source of voters, that is the mohalla, the para, where people live, and in particularly in rural areas, it is found also in urban areas in some cases, where a particular community or a
I
particular group
remember
of people.
sorry for interjection. There was one election where at the heart of the city, apartment blocks were locked. The gates were locked.
Yes,
That
so
was
that
back
is
in the
source
left
jamming.
days.
So that is source jamming. And in fact, that we also, another reason for this high polling percentage, particularly in phase two, was that all the high rises were targeted by us, and we tried to, provide polling stations within the high rise complexes, within the gated community complexes.
Right.
So what happened was the
I
polling.
voted this time with it.
Okay,
And it was a
good.
beautiful experience. I mean, there was no
You just
those.
walk down your flat and go to the booth, and
Not only that, there was no trace of any political party anywhere around. You just go, cast your vote, move around. That's it.
yes. So that actually ensured that a large number of people who hitherto did not vote, they also voted this time.
There was one problem, though. I think that will be taken care of in the future. You did it for the first time. Is that the parts were not properly? It has to be reorganized so that people in a society can vote within society. Right at this moment, what happened was these are dispersed, so it was not fully effective. I mean, it did
Yes.
not
So
include everyone.
the problem actually was that we had very little time after SIR was completed. Then we got into this whole mess about the litigations and the orders of the Honorable Supreme Court, and to implement that. So our officers on the ground, they are not able to do they did not get a time to do a thorough exercise regarding mapping of different localities within a part to different areas. So that exercise can now be easily done, and I'm sure in the next elections it will be much better experience.
It was a you were in the thick of confrontation, and your role, particularly, you mentioned about SIR. Now that said, sir, the thick of the controversy was on logical discrepancy. You have to answer me two things. Personally, I am convinced why it was used. It is basically to find out irregularities. You took help of technology. That's all. And that is what you are supposed to take. So, but the point is, what they were pointing out is that the logical discrepancy clause is being used only in case of West Bengal, not other states. So please answer me why you went for it. Was there any unusual spike in addition to the voter list in the previous years? Or is that why this can't be replicated? Because the problem, even in a smaller scale, can be there in other states as well. Over to you, sir.
So you see, it's like this, that there were, of course, many data which showed that the increase of uh, voters
Hmm.
not proportionate to the increase in population, the normal increase in population over the last few years.
Hmm.
That was not something which was considered by the ECI before introducing the logical discrepancy aspect. This happened because, in the process, we depended on the booth level officers who handed over the enumeration forms to every voter
Right.
whose name was there in the electoral roll published on 27th October 2025.
Right.
So everyone who featured in that roll, they were provided with 2 copies of the enumeration form, which they were supposed to fill up and submit to the BLO in his second or subsequent visits to his house.
Right.
Now, the presumption was that people will truthfully fill up the form and submit it to the BLO. And the BLO will use the data to link him with anybody who already features in the 2002 roll.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, what happened? Two things happened.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, in some cases, the data which was filled up was inaccurate or incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
But this was not the majority of the cases.
Mm-hmm.
In many cases, what happened? The linkage which was established with a 2002 voter was not correct.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why that happened, whether the BLO exercised caution, etc., we would not be able to say. But in hindsight, I can say that it may have been better to have the BLOs check certain documents when they were collecting the enumeration forms, which they were not specifically asked to do. As a result, what happened was that a lot of the linkages which were established with 2002 roll were incorrect. For example, if your name is linked with, let's say, Mr. X Basu, who is roughly of the age to be your grandfather or father in certain city, although you are not actually related to him, then the system will accept it. Yes,
Is it true that you found some people having 300 children?
yes. So this is yes. So we did. So I'm coming to that. Actually, what happened was this database was created. Once the database was created, it came to light that certain peculiar inconsistencies were there. The age difference between father and son was less than 15 years, between grandfather and grandson less than 40 years. Then there were these cases where a person had 20, 30, or 40 odd children, in one case more than 350 children. So these were cases which led the election commission to believe that the database has been corrupted by wrong data. And that is when the software was used. One software was used to identify those cases where there were inconsistencies in the data which had been entered. And that was how logical discrepancy was born. And then, of course, everyone had to be, everyone who featured in that list had to be issued notice. And really, I must also say that in this, many of the people who were genuine voters, unfortunately, they also had to, because they had received the notice, because of certain discrepancy, and many of these discrepancies were because of spelling errors in their names or in their parents' names, etc. They had to appear and produce the documents.
I remember, actually it has done, in my opinion, it has done some good to regular citizens because their documents are now clear or will be clear. I remember the
Right.
person next to me, it is just case of an woman who got married. Now, as per rule, you should change your name in all documents accordingly. And then someone writes the full name, for example, the middle name is dropped in some document. Now, these are inconsistencies which would have given him or her trouble at some point of time, particularly insurance or bank claim. It is common. So these are very genuine cases, but they had inconsistencies,
Yes,
unfortunately. So they
you are
were
right.
caught. They were caught.
So future inconvenience was probably averted by this inconvenience of standing in the queue for getting this thing corrected.
Tell me
So
two things. One, uh, so the data in only in West Bengal, the data was abnormally corrupted. Is it so?
I would guess so. Although I have not compared the data from other states. I think in Tamil Nadu also they had some, particularly because of this sort of name mismatch. But I have not compared the data in other states.
So, can you give us some idea of two things? One, whether the election commission will use the experience in checking the rolls in other states, or number one. Number two, because this should be a regular exercise. SIR was previously a very regular exercise. I don't know why it was dropped for 2 decades. Okay. And second is that when are we going to shift to the unique number?
Shift to the
Unique number.
unique number in the sense?
I mean, right now you can always have overlapping. Someone can be a voter in Delhi, can be a voter in Bengal as well.
No, it is illegal actually. It is illegal if somebody is there. If somebody is there in multiple places, it is an offense.
No,
And
fine,
people,
it is an offense.
what happens is a person shifts from one place to another, and he forgets to get his name deleted. So it is not that people do it deliberately. It is only a sort of negligence in most cases, unless somebody has a deliberate reason of having more than one card. So unique number has already been introduced. In future, all the series, whatever epic cards are generated, they will have unique numbers, and already the new cards have unique, codes. So I'm
Oh,
sure
so the
whatever.
move over unique number has already started.
Yes, it has already started.
Okay, so that will be a big change, so that in future there cannot be overlapping of data.
Yes.
Sir, we are the last part of the discussion. Now, let me quote something from a post in IIT alumnus page, alumni foundation page. So it says that, I mean, let me read out. Dr. Gupta was shunted out to less important departments. It's talking about West Bengal, your experiences with West Bengal for more than 3 years, etc., by the state government at a time when junior bureaucrats were offered important portfolios, etc., etc. So, your experience of working in West Bengal hasn't been good, it seems, in last decade or so. I mean, my point is, what was the inspiration for you to do this revolutionary change in systems?
The Once I retired from Government of India in last May, I was informally helping out a company which was using artificial intelligence for intelligence processing. So I was with them. I was not looking after technical issues, but mostly I was trying to understand what they were doing and try to translate what they are doing to potential user entities. It was at that time that the election commission approached me and told me that this SIR exercise is being done in West Bengal, and I felt that it was a good opportunity to come back to West Bengal because I was based in Delhi then. So I thought that why not, let me give it a hand, and then I joined. They appointed me as the state role observer on 29th of November 2025, and I joined. And I had actually planned to complete the SIR exercise after, with the final publication of the rolls. The final publication of the rolls happened on 28th of February 2026. But the work of SIR was not complete. Although I did not want to continue, then the election commission decided that I should continue for the election also, and I did not say no. I continued in that position. So it has nothing to do with my previous posting in West Bengal. The only thing which happened is that because of my experience of working in West Bengal earlier, they felt that I probably had a better understanding of the situations on the ground, and I would be able to help them. And while doing the work, it did appear to me that my past postings in West Bengal did help me to plan a strategy.
Yeah, that's it. Lot many people knew what's happening in the state with the elections, but no one tried to change it to the extent that you did. And that is why, I mean, as a citizen, not as a journalist, but as a citizen, I'm really thankful. We were sick and tired of watching this.
Thank you.
And just asking, since the government invited you to help, so if they invite you, assume that there is a change in political change in West Bengal, and the center invites you to be involved in West Bengal, will you?
Right now, I am quite involved with the previous work which I was doing. I would like to resume that work, but this is a hypothetical question. So I have, once the issue comes up, at that time I will consider. But I am quite happy with the work which I was doing.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for the revolutionary change in
Thank you.
electioneering in West Bengal.
Thank you very much, Pratim.